Hello, everybody. Thank you for the greeting. My name's Eddie Liger. As John said, I'm a local wrestling coach in my area and trying to make the Olympics right now while also being an executive board member of the American Communist Party. And I'm extremely excited to be here today, extremely excited to see all your faces from all over the country. It feels like this has been a long time coming, and it's great to see something really starting to take shape. So today I want to talk about character. Because I think that on the individual level, character is what politics really comes down to. What kind of character do you have, and how do you live your life day to day? When my father completed the Ironman race in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, and then a marathon, a 26.2-mile run, we made shirts for him that had an Aristotle quote on the back saying, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." Because who we are as people, our character can be distilled down to our actions, our daily actions, our repeated actions. What do we spend our time and energy doing? How do we interact with the people around us? Do we allow ourselves to be surrounded by negative people who tear us down? These things shape who you are and affect how you're perceived. The very fact that you are in this room today says something about your character as an individual. As an American, every media, religious, and cultural institution in your life has probably told you not to be a communist. They have told you again and again that humanity has reached the end of history, and that anybody who suggests radically changing our social system is either an idiot or a psychopath. But this is a lie. And in reality, anyone with a heart and a brain should want to see a radical change in our existing system. But it's a lie that they're able to implant in a lot of people's minds through sheer repetition. And if you are in this room today, it means that you had the intelligence to realize that you were being lied to. And more importantly, the courage to stand up and do something about it. You had the backbone to stand up and say, "No, I'm not going to let you trap my family in debt and send my taxes to mass murder children, then expect me to sit on my butt and take it. I'm not going to believe what the media tells me about Syria, Libya, Ukraine, Palestine. Just a decade after they lied, or a little more than a decade after they lied us into the Iraq War with false information that was based on torture. I'm not okay with spending 40 plus hours a week being exploited by some Wall Street shareholder and not even getting to see my children or future children grow up because I'm too busy getting ripped off by some rich guy who doesn't work at all." And to the people who are selling us this system because it allows them to live in luxury off the backs of everyone else, we are not buying it anymore. We see through you. We have studied your lies, we have studied your system, and we know exactly how you exploit us. You can read the upcoming party journal if you want to learn more about it. We will gladly take your money. It takes a strong character to stand against ruling class lies, especially over the last 30 years since the fall of the Soviet Union, which gave the American and imperialist capitalist propagandists an example to point to and show the failures of socialism. As if industrializing your country, massively expanding healthcare access, providing universal daycare and 56 days of maternity leave, giving people more vacation time, increasing literacy rates from 35 to 100%, and defeating the Nazis can now be considered a failure because Gorbachev sold off the Russian economy to Wall Street and established a Russian Pizza Hut. This is one of the many reasons I have so much respect for Michael Parenti, a great American Marxist thinker. Because even after the fall of the Soviet Union, when everybody was telling him that socialism has failed, he continued to defend existing socialism and provide Americans with real Marxist historical analysis, in many ways sowing the seeds for what we see today. And I'm sure many people in this crowd have been inspired by the work of Parenti, who had to be very lonely throughout the last 30 years. But we see the fruits of his effort today. But Parenti talked a lot about how capitalism tries to erode our character as individuals. It tries to get us to prioritize naked self-interest and callous cash payment, as Karl Marx says in the manifesto, above our fellow man, above our own communities, as well as how it strips people of purpose and induces them with depression and social isolation. We see this everywhere in our society, in our schools, in our neighborhoods. But Parenti, as well as heroic figures like Che Guevara, who I try my best to model my own life after, not only believed in fighting capitalism through collective struggle, but also in how we go about our lives. They encouraged us to stimulate, oops, dropped my mic, one sec. They encouraged us to stimulate our minds with reading instead of spending every free hour playing video games or watching television. To reject the highly processed food that we are marketed every day and try to treat our own bodies with respect by feeding it nutritious fuel. I have a workout plan that I've been sending to different chapters, and I'm working on a nutrition plan as well as I read through the work of communist nutrition scientist Ray Peat. I'm glad you're glad to hear that you're all excited about that, because the ruling class does its very best to make us feel depressed and hopeless. They want us to embrace doomerism and degeneracy. They want the people who are intelligent enough to realize that the system is broken to feel that there's nothing they can do about it anyways. And so all they should do is chase short-term sensory pleasures and material wealth until they eventually die. The system relies upon eroding the character of intelligent individuals and making sure they don't become fighting individuals. But communists are those individuals of unshakable character who have the heart to feel for their community that is being exploited by the system, the mind to deconstruct the system and come to understand how it works, the spirit to stand up against the ruling class bullies who own every media outlet, and the body that they can set to work in the struggle to revolutionize this system. Although our bodies can vary greatly, and I'm not saying you have to have a six-pack to contribute, okay? You have to have an eight-pack. This isn't PSL. Step it up. The truth is that it is possible to change this capitalist system. And this was proven for the first time by the Bolsheviks of Russia, and a man who truly embodied the ideal character of a communist named Vladimir Lenin. A man with an iron will who refused to cower in front of the ruling class bullies that killed his brother, even before a successful Marxist revolution had proved the correctness of Marxist revolutionary theory and practice. But Lenin had simply studied to the point where he couldn't be lied to, while he continued to gather high character and competent, dedicated people around him. He openly lambasted those in Russia who said that revolution was impossible. And in the end, it was proven that he was correct, and that he had the most correct analysis of Russian society and the Russian working class because he was untainted by the propaganda of the ruling class, which was able to turn so many previously great revolutionaries like Karl Kautsky off the proper path. Lenin wouldn't allow himself to be bullied out of fighting for what he knew was right, or thinking things that he knew to be correct. He simply dismantled the ruling class arguments one by one and continued to work diligently until the Russian Revolution had become a material reality that could no longer be denied. And it's this kind of spirit that we need to embody as communists as we go forward in America and look to combat the years of McCarthyism and Red Scare propaganda that have been injected into our working class by the ruling class, which is really one of the only major disadvantages that we have here in America over other countries. But at the same time, we also have advantages, and advantages over our historical heroes of the past like Lenin, such as advanced means of communication and social media today, which is one of the gravediggers of capitalism that capitalism itself creates, which we can then use as a tool to transform the system. I mentioned earlier that I try to model my own life after Che Guevara, the famed revolutionary leader of the Cuban Revolution alongside Fidel Castro. And I've studied him, And one might think that all of the Marxists in Cuba at the time were huge fans of Che. They all loved Che, this man who came to Cuba to fight for the Cuban people, even though he was Argentinian, because he believed in this united Pan-American people. This person who spent all day reading theory, teaching other people theory, educating himself about Marxism. This man who would go run around the Escambray Mountains with a weighted backpack while he was training for the revolution. But there was an academic class of self-identified Marxists in the capital city of Havana, Cuba, who hated Che Guevara. They viewed him as adventuristic for believing that the Cuban peasants could be organized. They didn't think that the peasants could constitute a powerful enough political force to overthrow the dictatorship and the plantation economy. Many of these dogmatic academic Marxists believed that Cuba had to first pass through capitalism before they could achieve socialism, as if societal evolution and progress happen in a linear line. Now, does this academic class of self-described Marxists sound familiar to anyone? It's important to acknowledge that these kinds of pseudo-leftists that we are dealing with today have existed everywhere, and our heroes had to deal with them as well. today I understand why Lenin spent so much time arguing with other left-wingers, which was something that perplexed me when I first started reading it. Similar to Lenin, Che Guevara refused to be bullied by the Cuban academics, and the correctness of his revolutionary theory was proven in practice, as the majority of peasants enthusiastically supported the overthrow of the Batista regime and the plantation owners who had worked the peasants like slaves. But if you spend too much time worrying about what the academics think, you won't be able to reach the working people who are actually eager for revolution, because it's the only way to escape their material conditions, whereas a lot of academics are already living in relative material comfort. Some people have attributed a FOCO theory of revolution to Che Guevara, or Focismo, which is one of those concepts that he never explicitly named, but which was attributed to him by later students of his work. And it draws upon his theoretical works such as Guerrilla Warfare, written in 1960, and posits that a small group of high-character individuals could inspire a much larger group of people to revolutionary struggle by demonstrating their competence and commitment. The story of almost every communist party in an existing socialist country is the story of a small and extremely high-character group of individuals who are surrounded by wreckers, propagandists, and liars. However, through working diligently, they are eventually able to win the support of the people and grow the movement into a massive revolutionary uprising. In 1905 Russia, the Bolshevik Party was incredibly small, and after the failed 1905 revolution, the situation got even worse. It took until 1912 for Lenin to reconstitute the party, and until 1917 for them to become a leading force among the Russian workers, and a lot of the Russian soldiers as well. When the famous Granma yacht set sail for the Sierra Maestra Mountains to launch the Cuban Revolution, it carried just 81 revolutionaries. However, after they were ambushed by Batista's forces, who had learned their location through an intelligence leak, all but 12 of the Cuban revolutionaries were killed or captured. These 12 communists included Che Guevara, Camilo Cienfuegos, and Raúl and Fidel Castro. And this was the group that then mobilized the Cuban peasants to overthrow the US-backed puppet government and transform the structure of their society forever. So the Cuban Revolution literally started with 12 hungry dudes in the mountains. 12 dudes who were starving in the mountains were able to mobilize and inspire the people to revolution. And yet we have people who will tell us that we're too small, or that we don't have enough people to really make a difference. But this is just how it starts. More people will join as we demonstrate our competence and our character and win over the working class through our actions rather than just pandering. So think about the situation that our revolutionary heroes of the past found themselves in and compare it to our conditions today here in America. We're not the largest group ever, but I truly believe that we are building the same kind of organizations that Che and Lenin were at the beginning. Of high-character, dedicated individuals who can unite the political struggle that this country desperately needs. In 1902, Lenin said, "We are marching in a compact group along a precipitous and difficult path, firmly holding each other by the hand. We are surrounded on all sides by enemies, and we have to advance almost constantly under their fire. We have combined by a freely adopted decision for the purpose of fighting the enemy and not of retreating into the neighboring marsh, the inhabitants of which, from the very outset, have reproached us with having separated ourselves into an exclusive group and with having chosen the path of struggle instead of the path of conciliation." I don't think any quote more accurately describes our situation today, since we made the decision to form the American Communist Party and distinguish ourselves from the pseudo-communist American political parties who have chosen the path of conciliation and abandoned Marxism. From all angles, we are being attacked by wreckers, smear merchants, and those who wish we would just shut up about class struggle already and focus on the culture war distractions that have been designed by the ruling class. But let us not become self-congratulatory yet, because so far we have proved very little, and all of the hardest work is still in front of us. Each and every one of you, as an individual, needs to understand that now your choices and your actions, your words, everything that you do reflects back upon the party and back upon your comrades. This was something my father, and also high school wrestling coach, which was not always fun, but great man. This is something that he tried to hammer into the heads of me and my teammates. And it was one of the lessons that I had the hardest time accepting, because especially under this economic system, most of the time, it's easier to just do what you want, to not sacrifice for the collective and do whatever you want to do as an individual. But to be frank with you guys, as communists today in America, in the situation that we are in, we do not have a choice. We must accept this principle. We must train ourselves to take the collective into account when we take action. I don't get to go blackout drinking every weekend and try not to worry about who I pissed off the next morning when I wake up, because the stakes are too high and my actions now reflect on you all. I'm responsible to everyone in this room, to my own community, to my future children, and to my future children who might inherit a literal hellscape if we don't start getting things done very soon. When you have people who want to destroy your reputation and the reputation of the group that you are a part of, you simply can't give them free ammo by being undisciplined and frankly degenerate, although I know some people think that's a fascist word. To me, it just means treating yourself, others, and your environment with respect, rather than trashing them because you feel like doing it at the time. When people are coming for your head, you must live beyond reproach, otherwise you give them free ammo to come at you with. And I'm not telling you guys that you can't have fun. I'm having fun right now. Everybody who was at the Midwestern Marx Airbnb in Dearborn knows that we had fun. You can talk to my college wrestling teammates. They'll tell you that I had too much fun, but that's off limits, and I'm trying to get that put in the Constitution. They're all sworn to silence. But to be honest with you all, winning is fun too. And this is one of the things that I learned in wrestling once I started staying disciplined and denying myself some short-term pleasures that might prevent me and my team from achieving long-term goals. I actually started to have more fun because it's more fulfilling to achieve something in the long term that requires discipline and hard work with a group of people who you truly care about than it is to enjoy every short-term pleasure that you can, while always seeming to come up short of your long-term goals or maybe never even beginning the process of chasing them. Nobody is perfect, and my comrade Carlos Garrido has written a wonderful book about the failures of trying to maintain some kind of perfect purity. All we can do is our best. But now is the time to look inward as an individual and ask yourself, am I doing everything I can? Are there obvious changes that I can make to my life and my daily habits that will lead to more positive outcomes for my party or my country and community by extension? Am I spending at least a little time each week reading Marxist theory so I can stimulate my own mind and sharpen my rhetorical skills for the next time I'm in a political discussion with a coworker or community member? After all, Lenin told us the 3 keys to revolution are read, read, read. Another almost unbelievably high-character communist of history, Mao Zedong, told us to civilize the mind and make savage the body, because there is a dialectic that exists between discipline and freedom. Discipline gives us the freedom to control our own minds, control our own actions. Right? Liberal freedom is just the freedom to live without discipline, freedom for the individual to consume and exploit others freely, but no freedom to actually live a fulfilling life in connection with your community, which is what every human craves. That's what this system strips from us. In Mao's study on physical education, where he says to civilize the mind and make savage the body, he posits that the physical and mental discipline are inextricably connected. The healthier our bodies are, the more mental energy we will have, something which has been confirmed and explained in much more detail by the aforementioned communist nutrition scientist Ray Peat. I once had a coach who would tell me that if you're being a piece of crap in one area of your life, it will inevitably start to seep into other areas of your life. Now, that coach was an alcoholic, and that seeped into his, that was a joke. That seeped into his other areas of life, and he was eventually fired as a wrestling coach. But he was correct. He was correct that if you're messing up in one area, it will seep into other areas. The party is only as strong as its weakest link, and we all have an obligation to each other to hold that chain strong. When the CIA or the Mossad infiltrate organizations, they target those who they feel to be of weak character, and they manipulate them to turn them against the party. We've already seen this happen some ways. They tear high-character individuals out of the American left, leaving only self-righteous, virtue-signaling leftists who look down on the working class, and they are hated by the working class in turn. So the onus is on us not only to rebuild the American communist movement, but to restore our reputation in the eyes of the American working class. The ruling class would prefer that you live your entire life going to work, being exploited, and then coming home to consume short-term pleasures like booze, porn, and pot until the day you keel over and die. But the ACP is a party of a new type which draws from the legacy of past heroes like Henry Winston, who said, "No, I will not live like that. I will not do what you say. I will put the collective above myself. I will sacrifice for the good of my community. I will live a disciplined lifestyle. and I will not become a passive and submissive peon who lives only to consume while you drown my community and my family in debt and murder babies with my taxes. I will not. I would rather die. A better world is possible. I do believe in humanity, and I will not be gaslit by genocidal psychos who accumulated their wealth through giving people loans to buy necessary goods like housing, then charging them interest. You're a scammer. You're a parasite. You're a liar. And I will stand with the workers no matter how much you cry about it or how many of us you try to hurt for speaking truth to power. In the words of Che Guevara, it is not our fault that reality is Marxist. And reality is Marxist, my friends. Capitalism is not an eternal or universal economic system that can never be overthrown or improved. Just like slavery and feudalism before it were not, despite what the ideologues of those eras tried to tell us. The divine right of kings was once thought to be universal and eternal as well. But it's going to take a very high character group of dedicated individuals to get that done. I believe that group is the ACP, which is why I'm very proud to be standing in front of you today. Let us each do our best to live up to this monumental historical task that we have inherited. I am willing to fight for this country so long as you all are willing to fight with me. Thank you.